Hello everybody and welcome, I'm Andrei and this is the second episode of What is Improvisation? In this series I want to explore together with you free improvisation in music. In the first episode we had a brief introduction, so be sure to check it out. Today I want to start from the basics, which are not, as you may think, a series of rules to be able to play on the spot without a written score. No, this series is meant to be a useful tool to navigate the adventurous seas of free improvisation from different perspectives, not only the musicians. It doesn't matter if you play an instrument or not. If you love music in all its forms and want to know more about improvisation, this series is for you. Without further ado, let's start. First of all, a couple of important disclaimers. In all of my videos, I'm going to talk about and focus on non-idiomatic improvisation, mostly known as free improvisation, and won't touch idiomatic improvisation too much. There is a vast literature out there and many books dedicated to specific fields of idiomatic improvisation, like for example about jazz, flamenco, ragas, various music traditions, and better and deeper analysis than the ones I would be able to do in the short lengths of my videos. Some of the thoughts and ideas I share here are valid for both worlds, but since there is much less literature about free improvisation and even less discussion online of it, I'm going to focus on it here. Secondly, during the writing process of this episode, I found a super useful book, A Listener's Guide to Free Improvisation by John Corbett. I strongly suggest it. In the video description you can also find the full bibliography that I used to write my videos. There are a lot of great things to read, so if you're interested in these topics, be sure to check them out. Hearing is one of the five senses and it has a fundamental role in our life. Listening is one of the basic operations we do to recognize and understand the world around us. Someone calls our name from the distance, we will turn around to see where it comes from, who is calling us. Are we walking in the morning in a forest or in a park? We can listen to all sorts of birds singing. A dog is barking somewhere in the night. What's happening there? We live in a big city and there is always a background noise of traffic, horns and ambulance sirens. In every situation, our ears are working and helping us to experience the world. We will not argue for the priority of the ear. In the West, the ear gave way to the eye as the most important gatherer of information. Before the days of writing, in the days of prophets and epics, the sense of hearing was more vital than the sense of sight. The word of God, the history of the tribe, and all other important information was heard, not seen. In parts of the world, the oral sense still tends to predominate. But the human ear is different from a microphone that catches the sound objectively around us. Listening is a selective process. When you are in a very crowded place and you are speaking with someone, your brain will filter out all of the sounds that are not relevant for you in that situation. Other people's voices, the sounds of their movements and actions, everything goes into the background in order to focus only on the person you are talking to. This is just an example, but it gives us the idea that listening is an active process, not just a passive change in the pressure of the air that reaches our eardrum and then our brain. And since it is an active process, we can train it. Pauline Oliveros for me is one of the most important composers and intellectuals of the 20th century. Her work focuses on what she called deep listening, a series of techniques to train your listening skill and make it an active and conscious process. Probably the most challenging and radical concept she developed is that active listening is a composition process. You can become a composer with the simple act of listening. So fascinating, right? Listening takes place in the auditory cortex and is based on the experience of the waveforms transmitted by the ear to the brain. Understanding and interpreting what the ear transmits to the brain is a process developing from instantaneous survival reactions to ideas that drive consciousness. The listening process continues throughout one's lifetime. But how does all of this stuff relate to free improvisation? The answer is pretty simple. The principles that we use to understand how listening works on a general level are the same that we use when we listen to music. In free improvisation, an active listening process is, I'd say, fundamental, both for the musicians and the audience. All of us, more or less, are exposed to music, in our houses and from the car radio, as a background in whatever shopping, TV shows, movies, and so on. We developed on a subconscious level a knowledge of what music should sound like and what its basic principles are. This is valid both for music lovers and musicians, but also for people who don't usually listen to music. Songs are a big part of what we consider music. But of course, the song is just a recurrent structure that uses many variations inside of a specific grid. You have a constant pulse given by the drums and the bass, a harmony built with one or more chords, a melody produced by the main instrument, and the words of a voice that we will be able to remember and sing along with. We don't need to listen in an active way or focus very much to enter into the world of a song, because we are pretty used to it and to its structure and basic elements. On the other hand, if you want to enter the realm of free improvisation, you need to abandon a lot of these reassuring basic building blocks. Many times, stable rhythms or pulses are avoided. Harmony and melody can be used, but are not as important as they are in a song or a classical music piece. Most of the times, there are no words to remember or catchy melodies to whistle. Leaving behind all of your musical anchors and forgetting the hierarchy and value of the blocks that build what we consider music can be scary in the beginning, but I can assure you it is worth the effort. It is like sailing for an adventure with no maps to discover some unknown places and emotions. Active listening becomes your compass and an amazing tool to navigate in free improvisation. At this point, ready to discover unknown fields with our adventurous spirit, we can ask ourselves, what are the basic building blocks in free improvisation and how we can recognize them? To do so, I'm going to borrow some of the Corbett's really effective suggestions and exercises that we can practice when we attend a free improvisation concert. Where does a sound come from? In free improvisation, a very familiar instrument can be played in many unusual ways. External objects can be used to shape its sound, like for example in a prepared piano, where you insert metal and wood pieces between the strings, or to play the instrument itself. Parts of the instrument that are usually not played can be used as sound sources, like the body of a guitar or the keys of a saxophone hit as percussions. These are called extended techniques. A good exercise for beginners and advanced listeners is to try to catch the source of a sound event. Who is making that sound? If you're attending a concert and have a good point of view, you can help yourself with your eyes. It's much more difficult to understand who makes what sound with electronic instrument, but in that case you can check the movements of the different musicians to identify it. Most of the time they like to do dramatic gestures to underline what they are doing, me included. Dynamics. Dynamic is a specific term in music and it refers to the volume at which a sound is played. It can be forte, fortissimo, piano, pianissimo, etc. In free improvisation, we can expand that concept to both the volume at which a musician or a group plays and the quantity of sound events that are produced by them in a specific moment. Those are very important elements in free improvisation. If you have ever attended a free improvisation concert or listened to a record, you can easily recognize a recurrent pattern: peaks and valleys. It is a very natural evolution in free improvised pieces. Everything starts at low volumes and very plain, not that much is happening. We are in a valley. Then, in a crescendo of dynamics, both in volume and quantity of sound events, we reach an intense peak, and then things will slowly drift again into a state of calmness. Another valley. Of course, this is not the rule, but it is very common, so keep an ear on it if you go to one of these concerts. I have made hours and hours of music following this structure without even thinking about it. A good exercise as a listener is to focus on the dynamic and recognize the peaks and the valleys. But you can also think about the music in physical terms. Like matter, that can have different states, the music, like water, can pass from being sparse as the humidity in the air, then become liquid as a flowing river or the sea, freeze into a rock-solid state, and then back to whatever state the musician wants it to be. Try to figure out if an improviser is playing like a river, or a cloud, or an iceberg. Listening to the variations in dynamic opens the doors for you to one of the core aspects of free improvisation. Interplay. Another fundamental aspect of free improvisation is interplay. Interplay means the dialogue between the musicians. The metaphor musical discourse can be useful here to understand how interplay works. We can imagine a free improvisation concert like a chat between people. There are many different ways in which you can take part in a conversation. You can answer to someone else's words following their thread of thoughts. You can make a counterpoint or move the conversation to a completely different topic. You can overimpose your voice screaming out loud, or you can stay silent until you feel you have something interesting to say. Counterpoint, mimicking, disturbance, leaving free space, silence, questions, and answers. These actions and many others are all interplay strategies used by the improvisers. A good exercise when you listen to free improvised music is to focus on the interplay. Can you recognize when two musicians are speaking the same language and sharing the same topic? Is someone silent? Why are they silent in that specific moment? Is someone making a bold statement and inviting the others to follow them on that path? Is someone involved in a direct conversation in a duo? Is someone making a monologue and ignoring what happens around them?
It's super important that the performer is at the same time a very good listener. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you've got to give space, to leave space for other ideas, other propositions, other ideas for this story you're telling altogether, or for new ingredients, let's say, that people want to put on the table. So it's very important to keep listening and giving space, taking space when you feel the need to take it. Also just jumping when you feel that you want to join someone else in creating something together. Also, you can create different dialogues with people you are playing with. Like, for instance, you can take the role of the disturber, let's say. Like you want to propose something completely in contrast with what is going on in that moment. That's also something good for music. I mean, we don't always have to agree on everything. You can have, in a group, you can have something happening and someone saying the opposite thing. These contrasts can be very playful and colorful for the music. It's always a very nice adventure to to play all together in very big ensembles. Like last September, we had a performance. We were almost 20 people all together improvising. That was really, really demanding, but when it works, it's magical.
A very important part of the dynamics is who plays and when. The bigger the ensemble of improvisers, the higher the risk to have a messy situation that goes nowhere. For these reasons, good improvisers tend to leave space for the other members of the group when they feel it is needed. Or they can enter abruptly into a musical discourse that is becoming boring and repetitive. Taking space for yourself and giving space to the others to explore a specific moment, sound, etc. is a core practice in free improvisation. For solo improviser, it is a bit different, but we will talk about them in a future episode. These are some of the main features of free improvised music. You can of course find a lot of other core concepts and practices in free improvisation, like for example the relationship between the musicians and the audience. But I don't want to make this video last 1 hour, so we will talk about these topics soon, promised. If you have never been to a free improvisation concert and you are approaching this world for the first time, I suggest that you check for some events or video recordings where conduction is involved. What is conduction? Can you explain us what conduction is?
Conduction is a language in which the director shares some hand signs with the musicians, and the musicians follow those signals, interpreting them with a high degree of freedom, pretty much. The director organized the music, as in a way composing the music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was invented by Butch Morris. Can be quite easy to use apparently, and then as you go deep, you pretty much quickly figure out that it's a very deep rabbit hole, and if you want to go there and really study it, it's very hard to do it. The director organizes the music, but the musician gives the material to be organized. So if you don't have very helpful musician, in a way, it can become a bit didascalic and a bit too strict.
In Conduction, the dynamics and the interplay between the musicians is shown explicitly through the hand gestures of the conductor. This visual element can greatly help the audience to understand some of the free improvisation processes. I will dedicate a full episode to Conduction and instant composition techniques in the future, so if you're curious, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified about it. Now we have to consider all of the aspects we talked about: sound sources, dynamics, interplay, etc. As an external listener, these are all elements you can focus on to discover little details, or you can choose to ignore them to enjoy the whole sound result. On the other hand, for a musician, they have to be considered, felt, experienced and creatively used all together at the same time and while you're playing with other people in front of an audience. For this reason, free improvisation in general is very demanding in terms of focus and skill. It requires, from the musician's perspective, what I call internal ears and external ears, always wide open and ready to catch every interesting thing that happens in a specific moment, both on the inside or outside. The internal ear helps you understand if you are playing something that is interesting, that is new and surprising to you, that it is coherent with what you feel in that moment. The external ear gives you an idea of what is heard from the outside, what it is the general result of the musician's combined work, of what happens to them when you play something specific. At the same time, the external ear allows the improviser to understand what happens outside of the stage, the effect of the music on the audience, or the space they are in. Playing a free improvised concert is quite a ride. It is very demanding, and if you are not focused or into it enough, it can easily become boring and uninteresting. Even considering this high risk and the vulnerability you expose yourself to while playing something you don't know yet, for me it is one of the most rewarding experiences ever. When it works, it seems like something magical happens, because there is a sort of coherence between what you feel, what you play, and what the other people feel. It is like a moment of deep presence. You are here in the present and in the relationship between you and someone else, in an emotional and intellectual communication process through the language of music and sound. It is probably something difficult to understand if you've never felt it, but trust me, both as a musician and a listener, when it happens you definitely feel it, and it's amazing.
It's actually super easy. This is like also another thing which we discovered, that And I think it's also like supposed to be, in my opinion, the goal for every musician who plays music. It's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be easy feeling. You don't have to. It doesn't have to have this hard feelings that you are now really putting so much effort to play it live.
Okay.
No, it should go very easy, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that it should be simple. It's all about like your communication, which already so automatized. It's like I don't know, it works like a USB-C, just like super fast, goes both ways. So you don't have to you don't have to look at each other. You don't have to. You just do it. And the thing is, we come back here again to the point, I think, of like believing in what you're doing while you play it, because there are some compositions we have which I listen afterwards and I'm thinking like, this is so interesting how this exactly tune now works, because it could fall apart each time. Like every single moment it can fall apart because Patrick plays on the drums completely his own rhythm and I play completely my rhythm, and it still moves and it goes because everyone of us is so convinced in what he's doing. So we just know, no, it's okay. It works like this. We don't have like even a single, even like a super millisecond thought about maybe I played something wrong or where is the rhythm. No, I don't think about where is the rhythm. Here it is. I do it. I create it, and the same does Patrick, and it just coexists together. And this it makes it, I think, interesting for the listener at the end, because like each time you think like how does it work, but it works.
I really like the idea that it has to be as simple as possible, as natural as possible.
It's it's like there is like this, I think, quote by I think it was Einstein, who said like, make everything you do as simple as possible but not simpler.
I think it's a great opportunity to spend some time with yourself, with your instrument and with your sound, and to really focus so much on the sound you want to get, and to create a story where you are the main narrator, you are the storyteller, and you've got to find your way to tell stories that you fully believe in and that you really like and you want to share with people.
When you have a small group, you can organize the music material more easily because it's easier to listen. It's an easier game to play, let's say, and to have. So in the Doom we are like 12, okay. So it's not 120 orchestral people. That's scary, first of all. But then that's another game. Let's say on 12 people, 13 people, 11 people. You just have to train. You have to exercise, you have to train your ear to listen in a different way and not just listen, because that's a musical aspect. What I think it's lacking most, and that's the reason why, the real reason to me, that above a certain number, everything can fall apart pretty easily, is that you don't share anything else besides music. That means that you have to have empathy, which is a good quality to have, even if you don't play in an orchestra. But many musicians lack of it, a lot of musicians lack of it, especially the mental and emotional empathy. And when you play in such a big ensemble, you have to have that. Otherwise, you're just stuck with your musical vision, which is good, can be enough. But it's hard that it's enough. I know it's gonna sound cheesy a lot. I know it, but I truly believe it, and I can't find a better word for now. It's about love. I know it may sound like an abstract thing, and when you create a strong bond between people and in such large number, things start to grow differently, even in music. And if you don't have that feeling towards the other people, so caring about your fellow musicians, actively believing in someone else, truly, not just by speaking, things become possible even in a large number.
And you? Have you ever been to a free improvisation concert? What have you felt? What did you focus on? What did you notice? Did you get lost in the music, or were you repulsed by it? Have you ever played a free improvisation concert? Was it scary or interesting? Let me know in the comments. We are at the end of the video, so I want to thank you all for following the series. In the previous videos there were so many precious comments of experiences, ideas and questions. I really love it. It means that my intention to create a shared collective narration about improvisation is being received and understood. I'm so grateful for that. A special mention and a big thank to all the people who accepted my invitation to talk about improvisation and appears in these videos, and to my friend Nick for helping me with the scripts. I also want to thank all of my patrons for their constant support. The production of this series is very demanding for me in terms of time, study and resources. Your help means really the world to me. It makes my work easier and gives me the motivation to keep going on. I share a lot of exclusive stuff on Patreon, interviews, behind the scenes, b-rolls, updates and previews. So if you like what I do and want to help me to do it better and better, consider checking it out and subscribing. That's it for this episode. Thanks everyone, and see you very soon. Bye!